Hello, my name is Mitch and I draw Blood Force, and we're back to finish up the Jim Lee run on Uncanny X-Men. This is Uncanny X-Men 277, Chapter 4 of that little vacation in the Savage Land and some other stuff in space. But before we get into the issue, if you enjoy the channel, if you want to support me as an artist, what you can do is in the description there's a link to my Patreon. If you were to go subscribe there, that gives you access to all of these videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, usually a week or so in advance. It also gives you access to the Blood Force pages and finished comic books, there's a couple now, and any process stuff or behind the scenes or any Patreon exclusives. In addition, if you were to go over to my Instagram, commissions there are now open. That's how you can get me to draw you some stuff. And of course, if you have any ideas for what to revisit next, leave a comment down below. So here we are at the end of the Jim Lee run. This is June of 1991, and he's prepping for X-Men #1, which is going to drop in October. And Jim has a tendency to be a little slow. They want to give him a run-up if they can. So starting off with the cover, I feel like this one's pretty good. It's out of the four, it's the weakest, I would say. I mean, it's tough to beat the double gatefold. And then you get, nice composition with the Savage Land stuff and the strong image with Wolverine standing over slashed or stabbed Professor X. This is just kind of random. Two dudes duking it out, which is the kind of cover Jim Lee likes to do a little too often. Really, all those Image guys. They're not big on putting stuff that happens in the issue on the cover. Because, why would you want to know that? Just get a cool image. And both of them work in my opinion. I guess it's just a personal preference, really. I will say the blue and yellow of the X-Men uniforms does stand out rather nicely against the red background. Background in quotations, because that's not a background, but sure. So for a quick sum up, there were basically two parts at the beginning of this four-part sequence. There was the Savage Land stuff with Magneto and Rogue and Nick Fury, which is an interesting mix. That all got wrapped up at the end of issue 275. Then there's the stuff with the X-Men in the Shi'ar Empire. At first thinking they were rescuing Professor X, but then discovering that he was actually a shape-shifting evil alien / monster / something. We do determine it in this one, but we don't really have it described up until this point. And the same thing can be said for everybody else who's active in the Shi'ar Empire. So we've got the Starjammers, we've got the Imperial Guard, and we've got Lilandra's troops. So the entire Shi'ar Empire is against the X-Men, which is a good place to start out a climactic issue. And we're going to start out here. It was Forge and Storm and Banshee with Lila, Cheney and Deathbird against the Starjammer. And then Deathbird grabbed Lila Cheney and forced her to teleport her away. So it's just those three X-Men that get to take on a spaceship now. And they're about ready to blow away Storm and Banshee. Except it turns out Gambit, who we thought had been captured, or I thought anyway, had been captured by the Skrulls. Okay, they're war Skrulls. It does get described, they're Skrulls. Because Gambit and Jubilee disappeared at the same time, it would be natural to think that Gambit also got captured or got killed. Because they keep saying, capture the females, kill the males. Even though they've captured Professor Xavier and Wolverine. But we can assume they've killed a bunch of other males in the meantime. And Gambit has in fact snuck aboard the Starjammer, and he's going to start tearing the place up now. And nothing too fancy for an opening page. This is, I think I'm starting to get it with the way they do these. Because, I mean, the first one you expect to be some sort of setup. You'd like it to be a splash of some kind, but you can't always manage it. The important thing is that first flip. And holy shit. So the explosion has thrown off the aim at the last second and nearly fried anybody. Banshee's going to cuss out Forge for his cloaking field not working. And Forge, of course, is trying to pilot and run the cloak at the same time now that Lila Cheney's disappeared. But man alive, is that ever an opening spread. Storm is fucking massive. The Starjammer looks massive. Everything. Like, you're right in the middle of the action. That is just impressive stuff. and it doesn't look like anything was skimped on. That was an issue with some of the Jim Lee double spreads I was seeing in Wildcats, was that they look like gigantic, like big spreads, but that are blown up again almost. And so you're not getting extra detail, so it almost doesn't need to be an additional spread. Those 4-page spreads that he was doing in Wildcats number 5, I think it was. Yeah. They look like the kind of thing that could be done over a normal 2-page spread. There doesn't seem to be any additional detail. There's all sorts of fucking detail here. If you're not getting it in everything that's going on in Storm here, like nothing looks blown up here. All the ticks are still small. All the lines are the right proportion. If you're not getting it there, though, it's all in the ship, which is massive and detailed and the right amount of detail. So they're going to have to try and fight this thing using pretty much just their powers. Storm here mentions the starship is deep enough within the atmosphere for her control of the weather to have an effect. So that's a nice little detail. If they are going Marvel method on this, then that feels a bit like covering Jim's tracks maybe. But that's some good housekeeping. Unfortunately, it also destroys Forge's sled. He has to try and find a way in. He uses his little grappling hook thingy. And I always like this movement with the upside down, and you still get the feeling he's rotating. Meanwhile, inside the ship, Gambit is causing some havoc. And he seems to be able to take everybody out fairly easily here. Until, I don't know, I think it's like a cat lady, I don't know her name. So she gets to deal with them while the other Starjammers have to go deal with the other X-Men. And she reveals herself to be a Hulk or something. And that's a pretty classic shot of Gambit. I like I like the action in this one. He's able to get three hits in, basically, in the one panel, and make it look cool. That's pretty difficult. And like hyperextending that knee, and just that's great stuff. Meanwhile, Chod or Chode or something, let's hope it's not Chode, but has found Forge, who did make his way inside of the ship and is now trying to access the systems because he's the tech guy. Turns around, unloads a gun in his face, which apparently doesn't do anything to not Chode. I like the bulk here. Taking up half the panel just with his arm and shoulder. You do get the feeling he's just massive. It's good stuff. And then Banshee busts in. Does he come straight in from space? That's a little unclear. It seems like he does. Which seems like it should be a problem, but apparently not. But maybe the only cool shot of Banshee that's ever happened. And then, of course, what is his name? Raza, I think, gets the better of Banshee, but then Storm comes to his rescue. Everybody's coming to everybody's rescue. That's how comic fights work. Because you can't really surprise the reader, so this is the only way to do it. If you were to do a fight where two guys are fighting, one guy is obviously getting the upper hand, he's unloading combos, all that shit, then all of a sudden, the other guy pops up with like an uppercut or something and breaks it and staggers him and then reverses it on him. That can be an oh shit moment. You can't really do that in comics because it just ends up looking like a hockey fight where they're trading blows. So, yeah, I'm starting to think that the cavalry save, it's kind of tough to get away from that in a comic fight. So at this point, Corsair has had enough of the X-Men. No longer trying to stun the females. He's just going to kill them if he can. And again, cool shot of Storm. This is one of those issues where we're going to get a cool shot on pretty much every page. And reveals himself saying, better these humans slain than us, which confirms for Storm, who hadn't really had it confirmed to this point, that Deathbird was telling the truth, that, Xavier is being impersonated, and confirms that the Starjammers have also been impersonated. And we get to see a little bit of Corsair's actual form. We haven't really seen anybody in full lighting. We saw a little bit of the Xavier guy. Well, actually, the Chancellor who then turned into Xavier. That was about it. And now we're going to cut back to what's left of the other part of the story, which is, I guess, Lila, Cheney, and Deathbird versus Lilandra and Xavier, Psylocke, the Imperial Guard, and the X-Men who have been captured. That's not good. So, catching up with Lila, Cheney, and Deathbird. When they ported out, Deathbird all of a sudden experienced somebody yelling in her head, basically. Grabbed Lila, Cheney and said, to these coordinates. And these are the coordinates that she's ended up teleporting to, which is where the X-Men are being held prisoner, starting with Charles Xavier. And of course, if they're going to be teleporting to where the prisoners are being kept, that means that Professor Xavier and Lilandra and all of their guards are going to be nearby. And it turns out that the Skrulls have made their copies of Wolverine and Jubilee as well now. They're going to hang on to Lila, Cheney, because having the ability to teleport, yeah, that's useful if you're conquerors. That has a little bit to do with Blood Force, actually. And Deathbird has proven herself to be enough of a nuisance, they're just going to kill her. And okay, panel. You know, it's good. It's just not yay, holy shit, that kind of thing. So Lila is admitting to herself very quickly that she does not have any place here, really. She can't handle somebody like Gladiator. And Professor Xavier quickly gives her a plan of action. So she teleports out. We don't know where. Fake Wolverine and fake Jubilee argue about who gets to kill Deathbird. And they end up arguing a little too hard and kind of taking some swings at each other. Which it turns out is because of Professor Xavier just kind of nudging him a little bit. To, you know, just raise the irritability a little bit more than it needs to be. And then fake Xavier does a little bit of monologuing until the Starjammer shows up right inside of their perimeter and crashes into the chamber they're in, which is pretty sick. I like the design of the ship, too. Like, you know it as soon as you see it. And then on board of the Starjammer was, of course, the victorious X-Men. That's a pretty badass shot to open up with. And we're going to get some X-Men versus X-Men. That's always good. We're also getting Gambit versus Gladiator. Tosses him. And Gambit counters with the entire deck charged up. Which, alright, I don't remember ever seeing that any other time. I assume they've used it several times since, though. But it's a cool shot. And this motion is pretty good. The snag out of the air. It's a little bit of, what were you doing? You know, were you trying to kick 3 feet over his head? But I don't care, because it looks pretty dope. And again, the motion here, I feel like we needed some motion lines to give that impact. That does feel a little bit weightless. But we also don't want, you know, Gladiator should theoretically be able to kill Gambit very easily. So we don't really want to do that, I guess. And yeah, cool shot to end on. And Psylocke goes after Forge and orders Jubilee to blind everybody, because as a telepath, she doesn't need to actually see people, which is interesting. They're using like tactics and stuff. Remember those? I don't. I've just been reading Image comics for the last year. And yeah, she kind of fries Forge's brain a little bit, but not enough that he can't shoot her and knock her into the Nexus Amplifier, which is a nice little gobbledygook phrase, and which permanently disrupts her form so she can't actually duplicate Psylocke anymore. So she's kind of stuck being a Skrull in a yellow jumpsuit. Nobody wants to be that. You dress up as that for Halloween, like, nobody's going to know what that is off the top. And Forge, his synapses are frozen after being telepathically assaulted, so he can't convince his fingers to pull the trigger again, which is, again, nice little touch. Just for adding a little bit of tension in the middle of a fight where, you know, it's not actually motion and you control the pace that you ingest the action at. And then we get a bit more cavalry action. Storm comes to forge his aid and fries Jubilee and Psylocke, or vice versa. That looks like it was probably more like Jubilee there. And then surprise attack by Wolverine on Storm. Surprise attack basically means there was no indication in the previous panel that he was actually going to attack her, which I've been trying to be diligent about, making sure that there's some sort of lead up. I guess it's not really necessary. I don't know. I think I won't worry about it too much in future. And Wolverine is going to kill Storm. Well, not just yet. They're going to capture her. They're going to put her into the machine. He's got to do his monologue. His monologue is short, thankfully. And cut even shorter by Gambit. Nice shot. Got a little bit gory. Not too much. We're not seeing like an exit wound or anything, though. And we're getting basically the resolution of the cover here, which is nice. You don't always get that. And again, a kind of a cool, gory shot. And if you're flipping through the book, you imagine seeing this. We'll do that at the end. But this book is pretty good for just, if you're picking it up in a shop, flip through it, but what the fuck? For $1.25? You betcha! Wolverine counters, knocks him on his ass, and then another cavalry, this time by Banshee. As long as somebody's been out of the picture for like a page or two, they can be cavalry, I think. And then fake Xavier decides to take over the whole thing. This is all getting out of hand. And they explain here that he's using the combined psionic power of Xavier, Psylocke, and Oracle from the Imperial Guard. Which seems a little redundant, because Xavier's like the most powerful telepath there is. And does having Psylocke and Oracle in it make him really more... whatever, it doesn't matter. And he's about to get Lilandra to deliver the killing blow to Storm because she keeps resisting him, even though he's, got all this crazy psychic power going on her. Deathbird manages to stop her. Again, more cavalry. And fake Xavier tries to keep going with the psychic attack, but all of a sudden it's stopped. And there's a reason. And this feels like it was a punchline thought of in advance. It may be a little difficult to tell here, but Xavier is, in fact, tapping him on the shoulder, saying, "Excuse me," with all sorts of techno junk hanging off him. That's fun. And then punches him. Explains here that he hammered him mentally as well as physically, which is good, because even though, Jim Lee does draw him ripped for some reason, because that's he's Jim Lee, he's going to draw everybody ripped. He probably still shouldn't be able to take out a War Skrull, so I guess if he's hitting him telepathically, sure. Maybe he convinced him that he hit him just so hard. So hard. And now there's not a whole lot to do but wrap up. Xavier and the X-Men are going to reunite after quite a while, I imagine. Got to cut down Wolverine here, as well as Psylocke, Jubilee, and I guess that Oracle chick from the Imperial Guard. Like, why not? That'd be rude, right? Just leave her up there. Just be like, oh yeah. Imagine like leaving her for last. It's like, no. We were gonna get to you. Really, we were. And this is meant to be an explanation, but it feels like something got mixed up in the script here. So Xavier's describing what he did to the Skrull here, and then he fixes everybody telepathically. We get a brief description of who Jubilee is, because Xavier wasn't here for X-Men 244. So he has to have it explained. And then we get to Lilandra here saying, total physical discorporation, depriving us of all possible clues to their origin, save that they may appeared to be Skrulls. We'd best return to Chandelar to root out any more of these deceivers and provide our wounded with proper treatment, and then settle once and for... nothing, that didn't continue from anything. That's just confusing. It feels like a part of a script that was accidentally subbed in there. And then Xavier explains basically what he's been doing, which is trying to subtly impress upon people telepathically what they might be able to do. And he started with Deathbird, because for some reason he was able to access her a little bit easier. And Lilandra's worried that they're open to more attacks like this because of the conflict between her and Deathbird. And Deathbird's like, keep the fucking throne. I don't like it. Which is nice. And gives Xavier a parting gift to small reminder of precisely who Xavier instinctively turned to in his hour of greatest need, which again is fun. And then she's off on, I assume, fake wings. Because remember, this started with Deathbird having her wings getting ripped out. That's rough. And Banshee at this point is like, okay, the cuddles are nice, but we got to get back. And it's like, well, we got a second. No, we don't have a second. There's something wrong with Moira. Because we can't let anything really slip here, can we? So Storm tries to break down the previous, 50, 60, 70 issues. and there's a bit too much to contain in one panel. So he just kind of reads her mind and goes, our next problem is the Shadow King. Which is handy. Lets everybody know. So naturally they have to head back. And Xavier's a little weirded out that he doesn't know anybody here apart from these two. and well, he knows Banshee, I guess. It's like, who are you again? I'm the Irish one. Oh, right. And they're going to head back. And Stevie Hunter, who does pop up occasionally. I don't know what the fuck her deal is. I haven't read enough X-Men comics, I feel like. Gets assaulted by Colossus. Again, cool shot. Being controlled by the Shadow King, and that's going to be the next conflict. And we get a little bit of a heads up here about what's going to be coming in the next couple of months at Marvel, which is the end of New Mutants and the beginning of X-Men, not Uncanny, well, in addition to Uncanny, and X-Force. This brand new X-Force title. Everyone's so stoked about. It's going to be good, yo. There's going to be so much that happens in that book. And next issue, we're going to get a big welcome back for Paul Smith and Bob Wyacek, who will be taking over the artistic chores on the next few issues of Uncanny, while Jim and Scott gear up for X-Men #1. Actually, I think that's just the next issue. And the issue following is drawn by Andy Kubert, I think. Yeah. Who I've never been a fan of. Although, I gotta say, I've had this sitting out for a couple of days. And the lighting on Colossus is kind of nice here. This is pretty good. But, I considered doing the next issue as well, because there's a lot of questions after this 4-part series, and I wondered if maybe 278 answered them. Not really, because it's a crossover with X Factor, and it's its own little story now. But that is it for this particular run. This isn't it for Chris Claremont's run. I actually kind of thought it was, but he does get a couple more issues in before Scott Lobdell takes over. Bigger and better, you understand. So to sum up, this is an interesting little 4-issue stretch where we get the best of Jim Lee's art, and we get just kind of a good Chris Claremont story. Wasn't epic or anything, but there was no need to make it epic at the time, Chris was wrapping up 180 issues worth at this point. It's what's another 4-issue story at that point? That's a freaking weekend. But yeah, we wanted to do that quick run through. Just if you're in a store, because we've seen this multiple times before with a first page splash or just a breakdown kind of thing into the double page splash. And I think that is just an off the rack kind of thing. That was, I don't know who instructed that, but it does make sense, because if you're on the newsstand or you're in a comic book store, you're going to open it up, you're going to go, okay, flip the first time, go, holy shit. Take a quick flip through. Get a cool shot of Gambit leaping. Oh shit, he stabbed Wolverine. What the fuck happened there? Oh, Wolverine's killing Deathbird, apparently. We get cool shots of Storm. We get him getting stabbed. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what page you turn to. This is the power of the anchor image, I think, where there's something cool on pretty much every page. So if you're flipping through it in the store, you're like, fuck me, I better buy this thing. And of course, Eric Larson would kind of amp that up to the next level, where it's just, you get multiple splash pages throughout the book. So if you're flipping through, you're going to get something crazy every like 3 or 4 pages. So stuff to remember when putting together your own 90s comic book. You know anybody who's writing a 90s-esque comic book? They could probably use this advice. I wish I knew somebody like that. Anyway, so that'll do it for Uncanny X-Men number 277. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming up. Follow me on Twitter. More importantly, go subscribe on Patreon. That's where all these videos go before they get uploaded to YouTube, usually a week or so in advance. And that's also where all the Blood Force pages go and the finished Blood Force comics. There's a couple now. And you get access to behind-the-scenes stuff and a couple of exclusive things. In addition, if you go over to my Instagram, commissions there are now open. And if you have any ideas for future revisits, feel free to let me know. I got a shit ton of comics. You know, if I don't have it, and it's possible for me to get it, I'll probably get it. Come on, I'm building myself up as an influencer here, so influence the influencer whilst you can. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.